Ambassador Jake Morrison stood at the center of the great assembly hall on Nexus Prime Station. Around him, hundreds of alien delegates filled the massive chamber. Their many eyes, sensors, and communication organs focused on him with growing concern. The air hummed with the sound of translator devices working to convert his words into dozens of different languages. Jake had been Earth's chief ambassador to the Galaxy Council for 8 years. He knew these halls better than his own. He had walked these corridors, shared meals with alien dignitaries, and helped solve countless disputes between species. Today would be his last day here. The human delegation sat behind him in their assigned seats. They looked calm, but Jake could see the tension in their faces. They all knew what was coming. The decision had been made 3 months ago in emergency sessions back on Earth. Today was just the formal announcement. Distinguished members of the Galaxy Council, Jake began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's advanced sound system. I come before you today to deliver humanity's final statement to this assembly. A ripple of confusion spread through the alien delegates. The Velkari High Speaker, Thesara, leaned forward in her floating chair. Her tall, graceful form and pale blue skin made her look almost like an angel, but her dark eyes showed worry. She had worked closely with Jake on the trade agreements that brought prosperity to both their peoples. Ambassador Morrison, she said, her voice melodic but strained. What do you mean by final statement? Jake took a deep breath. The words he was about to speak would change everything. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from all diplomatic relations with the Galaxy Council and its member species. Earth and all human colonies will cease participation in trade agreements, joint military operations, scientific exchanges, and cultural programs. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates began talking loudly in their native languages. The insectoid, Zephyrian representatives' wings buzzed in agitation, creating a sound like an angry swarm. The crystalline Solarans pulsed with rapidly changing colors that their species used to show extreme distress. This is impossible, shouted the Mercani trade representative. Our economies are linked together. You cannot simply leave. Jake waited for the noise to die down before continuing. All human personnel will be recalled from mixed species stations and outposts within the next 2 weeks. Human ships currently engaged in joint operations will return to human space immediately. All ongoing research projects will be terminated. Hi. Speaker Thesara floated closer to the human delegation area. Jake, we have been allies for 20 years. Your people helped us through the Void Storm crisis. Captain Amy Rodriguez saved millions of lives when she evacuated New Geneva Colony. Why are you doing this now? Jake remembered Amy Rodriguez well. She had become a hero across multiple star systems when she led the dangerous rescue mission during the worst space storm in recorded history. Her quick thinking and courage had earned humanity respect throughout the galaxy. It made what he had to say even harder. This decision comes from the highest levels of human government, Jake replied. It is final and not open to negotiation. The Villani delegate, a short being covered in soft fur, stood up on his chair. But what about the medical research? Dr. Ben Carter was supposed to present his breakthrough work on interdimensional physics next week. Our scientists have been waiting months for this data. All research has been classified, Jake said firmly. Dr. Carter will not be making his presentation. No further scientific cooperation is authorized. The chamber fell into stunned silence. For 2 decades, humans had been model citizens of the galactic community. They shared their technology freely, often giving away innovations that could have made them rich. Human diplomats were known for their fairness and ability to find solutions that worked for everyone. Human military officers like Commander Lisa Park had revolutionized space combat tactics during joint training exercises. Their new strategies had helped end 3 border wars without major bloodshed. Human traders were trusted partners who always honored their contracts. Human entertainers had become popular across dozens of worlds with their music and stories, bringing joy to billions of alien citizens. The Zephyrian hive mind spoke through its representative drone. We demand an explanation. What has caused this sudden change in human behavior? Jake looked around the chamber at faces he had come to know well over the years. Some showed anger, others confusion, and many showed hurt. These beings had trusted humanity. They had welcomed humans into their galactic civilization and treated them as equals. "I am not authorized to provide explanations," Jake said. "I can only deliver the message from Earth's government." "This is madness," declared the Solaran representative, its crystal body flashing bright red. "Humans have become essential to our civilization. Your navigation systems handle over a third of all interstellar shipping. Your military advisors have prevented countless conflicts. Your scientists have made breakthroughs that benefit us all." Jake nodded slowly. He knew all of this was true. Humanity had worked hard to earn their place in the galactic community. They had proven themselves valuable allies and trusted friends. That made this moment even more difficult. "The withdrawal begins immediately," Jake said. "Human vessels have already received orders to return home. This is my final official act as ambassador to the Galaxy Council." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. It was his diplomatic credentials, the symbol of his authority to speak for all humanity. He placed it on the podium and stepped back. "I wish you all well," Jake said quietly. "But humanity's time as part of this council has ended." As Jake walked toward the exit, followed by the rest of the human delegation, the chamber erupted in voices calling for explanations, begging for reconsideration and demanding to know what had gone wrong. But the humans did not stop or look back. High Speaker Thessera watched them leave with growing dread. In all her years on the council, nothing like this had ever happened. No species had ever voluntarily withdrawn from galactic civilization. Something terrible must have happened to cause this. As the chamber doors closed behind the departing humans, she realized that the galaxy had just become a much more dangerous place. Dr. Keltar worked alone in the deep archives beneath Nexus Prime Station. The ancient storage chambers contained records that were older than most civilizations. Dust floated in the air as he opened files that had not been touched for centuries. High Speaker Thessera had ordered him to review every document related to the predecessor civilization. He was looking for clues about what the humans might have discovered. For 3 days, he had been reading through exploration reports and archaeological studies. Most of the files were routine: surveys of empty ruins, studies of broken technology, and failed attempts to translate predecessor writing systems. But as he dug deeper into the classified sections, he began to find documents that made him uncomfortable. The first disturbing file was a report from 12,000 years ago, written by the original founders of the Galaxy Council. It described the discovery of massive predecessor warning beacons throughout the galactic core. The ancient messages spoke of something called the Devourers approaching from outside the galaxy. Keltar's tentacles trembled as he read the translation attempts. The predecessor warnings were clear about one thing: a terrible enemy was coming, an enemy that had destroyed other galaxies before reaching theirs. The predecessors had built huge defensive installations and gathered all their allied species to fight this threat. But the predecessors had lost. Their entire civilization had vanished in what appeared to be a final, desperate battle. The warning beacons were their last message to whoever came after them. The truly shocking part was what happened next. The early Galaxy Council had found these warnings and made a deliberate choice to ignore them. The founding species had decided that the threat was too far away to matter. They chose to build their own civilization and hope the danger would pass them by. Impossible, Keltar whispered to himself. He opened another file, hoping he had misunderstood something. The second file was worse. It contained detailed studies of predecessor defensive technology. The ancient race had built weapons and shields beyond anything the current galaxy possessed. They had unified hundreds of species under emergency military command. They had turned their entire civilization into a fortress, and it had not been enough. According to the records, the founding council members had studied this information carefully. They knew exactly what kind of enemy the predecessors had faced. They understood the scale of the threat. But instead of preparing for war, they had chosen to classify the information and pretend it did not exist. Keltar found meeting records from the early council sessions. The debates were heated. Some members wanted to begin immediate military preparations. Others argued that the threat might never come, or that it had been destroyed along with the predecessors. In the end, fear won over courage. The council members decided that knowledge of the approaching enemy would cause panic throughout the galaxy. They sealed the files and agreed never to speak of the Devourers again. They convinced themselves that if they built a peaceful civilization, they could avoid the predecessor's fate. The final file in the series was a tracking report. Council scientists had been secretly monitoring deep space for signs of the Devourers' approach. For 12,000 years they had watched the spaces between galaxies, looking for evidence that the enemy was still coming. The reports showed increasing activity over the past century. Strange energy readings from intergalactic space, unexplained disruptions in distant star systems, sensor ghosts that appeared and vanished too quickly to study properly. 6 months ago, the final entry showed long-range detection of a massive fleet moving through the void between galaxies. The fleet was enormous, containing thousands of ships, larger than anything the current galaxy could build. It was heading directly toward them. The estimated time of arrival was 18 months. Keltar sat back in his chair, his mind reeling. The Galaxy Council had known this was coming for 12,000 years. They had chosen to do nothing, and now the enemy was almost here. He understood why the humans had left. Somehow, they had gained access to these same files. They had learned about the Devourers and realized that the galaxy's government had been lying to them for decades. Dr. Alex Chen had been leading human archaeological expeditions to predecessor sites. If he had discovered even part of this information, it would explain everything. The humans had found out about the approaching threat and the Council's cover-up at the same time. Keltar activated his communication device with shaking tentacles. "Hi, Speaker Thessara. Please come to the Deep Archives immediately. I have found what the humans discovered." 20 minutes later, Thessara arrived with Commander Vexula and Intelligence Director Vex Moran. They gathered around Keltar's workstation as he explained what he had found. "The humans gained access to classified predecessor files," he said. "They learned about the Devourers and our failure to prepare for them." Thessara read through the documents in growing horror. "These files show that the Council founders knew about this threat 12,000 years ago." "Yes," Keltar replied, "and the most recent tracking reports show the Devourer fleet is less than 18 months away." Commander Vexola studied the military analysis. "The predecessors had weapons and defenses far beyond our current capabilities. They had unified hundreds of species under military command, and they still lost." "Why did the founding council choose to hide this?" Thessara asked. Vex Moran pulled up the meeting records. "They were afraid. They believed that knowledge of the threat would destroy galactic civilization before the enemy even arrived. They chose hope over preparation." "And now the humans know," Thessara said quietly. "They know that we have been lying to them about the greatest threat our galaxy has ever faced." Keltar nodded. Dr. Emma Ross sent a final message to the council before the humans withdrew. She asked a simple question: "How long have you known?" The chamber fell silent. The question hung in the air like an accusation. The humans had trusted the Galaxy Council. They had worked as partners and allies for 20 years, and all that time the Council had been hiding the fact that their entire civilization might be destroyed within 2 years. "No wonder they left," Vexula said finally. "They realized we were either completely incompetent or deliberately deceiving them." Thessara looked at the star charts showing the Devourer fleet's approach. "The humans withdrew because they knew we could not be trusted to face this threat. They have gone home to prepare for war while we continued pretending nothing was wrong, the Q." Truth was clear now. Humanity had discovered that the galaxy they called home was about to be invaded by an enemy that had destroyed the predecessor's mighty civilization, and the government they had trusted to protect them had known about it all along. 6 months had passed since the humans disappeared from galactic civilization. High Speaker Thessara stood in the observation deck of her command ship, staring at the edge of human space. She had come here with a small fleet to try one more. Time to contact Earth's government. What she saw made her blood run cold. The entire border region blazed with industrial activity. Massive construction platforms floated near every human world. Ships moved between them in endless streams carrying materials and equipment. The scale of building was unlike anything she had ever seen. Long-range sensors are picking up energy signatures we do not recognize, reported her science officer. The humans appear to be constructing vessels of unprecedented size. Through her ship's powerful telescopes, Desiree could see the skeletal frames of enormous warships taking shape in the orbital shipyards around Earth. These vessels dwarfed the largest battle cruisers in the Galaxy Council fleet. They were easily 3 times the size of anything the Velkari had ever built. "How many ships are they building?" she asked. "Current count shows over 8,000 vessels under construction across 73 human worlds," came the reply. "Based on construction rates, they are completing approximately 200 ships per week." Thesara felt dizzy. In 6 months, the humans had mobilized their entire civilization for war production. Every colony world showed the same pattern. Agricultural planets had been converted to manufacturing centers. Research stations had become weapons laboratories. Even civilian space habitats were being transformed into military installations.
"Have they responded to our communication requests?" she asked. "Negative, High Speaker. All channels remain closed. However, we are detecting a broad-spectrum transmission being broadcast from Earth. It appears to be intended for the entire galaxy."
Thesara straightened. "Put it on the main screen." The image that appeared showed a human woman in a military uniform standing in what looked like a command center. Behind her, dozens of technicians worked at monitoring stations covered with star charts and tactical displays. The woman had short brown hair and determined eyes that seemed to look directly at Thesara through the screen. "I am Dr. Paige Martinez, Chief Science Advisor to the Human Defense Command," the woman began. "This message is being transmitted to all inhabited systems in the galaxy. What I am about to show you cannot be ignored any longer." The view changed to show a 3-dimensional map of local galactic space. Bright dots marked the positions of known star systems and trade routes. At the edge of the map, a dark region showed the empty space between galaxies. 18 months ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected anomalous energy readings from intergalactic space, Dr. Martinez continued. "We initially dismissed these as natural phenomena. However, continued observation has revealed the truth." The map zoomed in on the dark region. Suddenly, thousands of red dots appeared in the empty space. They were arranged in precise formation and moving steadily toward the galaxy. "Long-range sensors have confirmed the approach of a massive fleet consisting of approximately 12,000 vessels," Dr. Martinez said. "Based on their current velocity and trajectory, they will reach the outer edge of our galaxy in 12 months. Thesara gripped the railing of her observation deck. The sensor data looked genuine. The fleet was enormous, far larger than all the galaxy's combined military forces. Analysis of the approaching vessels indicates they are significantly larger than our most advanced warships, Dr. Martinez continued. Energy readings suggest weapon and defensive capabilities beyond our current technology levels. We believe this fleet represents the same force that destroyed the predecessor civilization 12,000 years ago. The transmission showed detailed sensor readings and mathematical projections. The evidence was overwhelming. This was not a hoax or propaganda. The humans had detected a real threat approaching the galaxy. Humanity has spent the past 6 months preparing for this invasion, Dr. Martinez said. We have unified all human worlds under emergency military protocols. General Dan Foster has been appointed Supreme Commander of Human Defense Forces. Our entire civilization has been mobilized for war. The view switched to show human shipyards in full operation. Massive vessels took shape under the bright lights of construction platforms. Workers in environmental suits moved like ants across the hull sections, installing armor plating and weapon systems that looked nothing like standard galactic technology. We have recovered and reverse-engineered defensive technologies from predecessor archaeological sites, Dr. Martinez explained. Engineer Claire Adams leads research teams that have successfully combined human innovations with ancient defensive systems. The result is a new class of warship designed specifically to fight this enemy. Thesara watched in amazement. as the camera showed the interior of one of the new human vessels. The corridors were wider than normal, with reinforced walls and emergency blast doors every few meters. The bridge was a fortress of armored stations and backup control systems. "Captain Sam Rivers commands our new Dreadnought-class vessels," Dr. Martinez said, as the view showed a massive ship launching from Earth's orbital shipyard. These ships incorporate hybrid human predecessor technology that makes them capable of withstanding planet-killing weapons. The Dreadnought was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Its hull gleamed with an unusual metallic surface that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. Weapon ports lined its sides in patterns that looked almost organic. Energy readings from the ship's engines suggested power levels that should have been impossible. "We estimate that humanity will have completed construction of 10,000 defensive vessels by the time the enemy fleet arrives," Dr. Martinez continued. "Our agricultural worlds have been converted to support military operations. Scientific research is focused entirely on weapons and defensive technologies." The transmission showed human colonies that had been completely transformed. Peaceful farming communities now hosted massive military bases. Research universities had become weapons laboratories. Even the entertainment districts had been converted to barracks and training facilities. "Humanity stands ready to defend our worlds and our people," Dr. Martinez said, her voice filled with quiet determination. "We invite any species willing to face reality to join us in preparing for this threat. However, we will not wait for others to act." The view returned to Dr. Martinez in the command center. Behind her, tactical displays showed human fleet positions throughout their territory. Every major world was protected by squadrons of the new dreadnoughts. To the Galaxy Council, and all member species, we say this: the evidence is before you. The threat is real and approaching rapidly. You have 12 months to decide whether you will fight or surrender. The transmission ended, leaving Thessera staring at a blank screen. Around her, the bridge crew worked in stunned silence. Proof was undeniable. The Devourer fleet was coming and only humanity was prepared to face it. "Set course for Nexus Prime," Thessera ordered quietly. "Emergency speed." As her ship turned away from human space, she took one last look at the blazing shipyards and construction platforms. The humans had transformed their entire civilization into a weapon in just 6 months. They had done what the Galaxy Council had failed to do in 12,000 years. The question now was whether the rest of the galaxy would have the courage to follow humanity's example. Time was running out, and the enemy was coming whether they were ready or not. The emergency session of the Galaxy Council had been going on for 12 hours. High Speaker Thessera looked around the chamber at the exhausted faces of delegates from across the galaxy. The proof was undeniable now. Dr. Martinez's transmission had included detailed sensor data that their best scientists had verified. The Devourer fleet was real, and it would arrive in less than 12 months. "We have no choice," declared Commander Vexula. "Our combined fleets have maybe 3,000 ships total. The approaching enemy has 12,000 vessels, each one larger than our biggest warships. We cannot win this fight alone." The Mercani delegate stood up shakily. "My people have tried to build new ships using our existing technology. We can complete maybe 50 vessels before the enemy arrives. It is not enough. The Solarans have been working day and night on new defensive systems," added the crystalline representative. "Our best efforts have produced shields that might withstand conventional weapons. But if the enemy has predecessor-level technology, our defenses will be useless." Thessera knew what had to be done, but saying it aloud felt like admitting defeat. "We need the humans. They are the only ones who prepared for this threat. They are the only ones who might be able to save us." The chamber fell silent. For 20 years, the Galaxy Council had been the supreme authority in their region of space. Now they were about to beg for help from a species they had lied to and betrayed. "What if they refuse to help us?" asked the Zephyrian representative. "We deceived them about the greatest threat our galaxy has ever faced. They have every right to leave us to face this alone." Intelligence Director Vex Moran spoke up. "Our spy satellites have detected human fleet movements near the galactic rim. They are positioning ships to intercept the enemy fleet before it reaches inhabited systems. The humans are going to fight whether we help them or not. Then we go to them, Thessara said firmly. We send a delegation to Earth and beg for their forgiveness. We offer them whatever they want in exchange for their protection. 2 days later, a small fleet of Galaxy Council ships approached the edge of human space. Thessara led the delegation herself, accompanied by the highest-ranking representatives from 12 major species. They had come to surrender their pride and beg for humanity's help. The human response was immediate. A squadron of the new dreadnoughts intercepted them at the border. The massive ships were even more impressive up close. Their strange, flowing hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Energy readings showed weapon systems that could crack planets. Galaxy Council vessels, you are entering human defensive space, came a broadcast from the lead dreadnought. State your business. This is High Speaker Thessara, requesting an emergency meeting with human leadership, she replied. We come to discuss the approaching threat. There was a long pause before the response came. Follow us to the designated meeting point. Any deviation from course will be considered hostile. The human ships led them to a space station that had not existed 6 months ago. The massive structure bristled with defensive weapons and sensor arrays. Docking bays large enough to service the new dreadnoughts lined its outer ring. Inside the station, Thessara and her delegation were escorted to a conference room. The humans who met them were not the diplomats they remembered. These were military, officers in crisp uniforms, their faces hard and focused. At the head of the table sat a woman with silver hair and steel-gray eyes. I am Admiral Jill Harrison, Senior Diplomatic Officer for the Human Defense Command, she said without ceremony. You have 5 minutes to explain why we should not escort you back to the border. Thessara took a deep breath. Admiral Harrison, we come to ask for your help. The Galaxy Council acknowledges that we have failed in our duty to protect our citizens. We know about the Devourer fleet. We know about our ancestors' decision to hide this threat. We know that we have betrayed your trust. Admiral Harrison's expression did not change. Continue. Humanity is the only hope our galaxy has for survival, Thessara said. We offer our complete surrender to human authority in exchange for your protection. The room was silent for a long moment. Admiral Harrison studied the alien delegates with calm, calculating eyes. Finally, she spoke. You had 12,000 years to prepare for this threat, she said quietly. 12,000 years to build defenses, develop weapons, and unite your species for war. Instead, you chose to ignore the danger and hope it would go away. We were fools, Thessara admitted. Our ancestors were cowards who chose comfortable lies over difficult truths. Humanity has had 18 months, Admiral Harrison continued. 18 months to discover the threat, learn the truth, and prepare our defenses. We have done more in that time than your entire civilization accomplished in 12 millennia. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. The truth was harsh but undeniable. If we agree to help you, Admiral Harrison said, it will be under human terms. Complete governmental restructuring of the Galaxy Council with humans in command of all military operations. Full disclosure of all classified historical data. Immediate integration of all galactic fleets under human strategic doctrine. And if we refuse? Asked the Velkari representative. Admiral Harrison shrugged. Then you face the Devourers with your own inadequate defenses. Humanity will defend Earth and our colonies regardless of your decision. Before anyone could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Admiral Harrison touched a communication device on her collar. Report, she said calmly. Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting scout ships at the galactic rim, came the reply. Estimated 12 vessels, consistent with Devourer technology. They are moving toward the outer colonies. Admiral Harrison stood up. The enemy has arrived ahead of schedule. You have 30 seconds to decide. Accept human leadership or return to your worlds and pray. Thessara looked around the table at her fellow delegates. She saw fear in their eyes, but also hope. Humanity had prepared for this moment. They had ships, weapons, and the will to fight. "We accept your terms," she said quickly. "The Galaxy Council surrenders authority to the Human Defense Command." Admiral Harrison nodded. "Then welcome to the new Galactic Order. Report to your assigned positions. We have a war to win." As the alien delegates were escorted to their new duties, Admiral Harrison turned to the tactical display showing the approaching Devourer scouts. Human battle fleets were already moving to intercept positions. The age of human dominance had begun, forged not through conquest but through the simple act of being the only species willing to face reality. The first shots of the war would be fired within hours. But for the first time in 12,000 years, the galaxy had leaders who were prepared to fight for its survival.